JustContext Podcast, episode 20. Um, I would say, guys, the weekend has been good to me in different ways. I guess I'll start there. Me and Jenna was having a conversation about abuse, and I've had the opportunity to witness abuse in so many different ways. I can say from past endeavors. Hopefully, I can stay away from all future endeavors because for me, I don't want to see too many people get abused. But I guess never to say the least, and to see people get abused because I guess they're doing too much. But there's so many different angles we can go with this abuse information. But Janelle, I'm gonna let you go.
Um, okay, guys. So let's start off by saying we did take that week break for our uh, let's call it Indigenous Peoples Day. Um, and the holiday, from work that just passed. So, we took a little break and now we're back. We hope everyone had a great holiday as well as, gave respect for the day of mourning for our natives. Um, so we can jump into why we're talking about abuse today. It's a little bit of a heavy topic, and I think that it was just kind of all over the timeline recently because, there's been a situation that recently popped up where it was, brought to the public's attention that a father who is well known was abusing his child when the child ended up with stab wounds. Or I should say a stab wound that went, through one side of his arm right through to the other. It's been in the media and people have been talking about it and giving, their 2 cents on the subject. And, I've just kind of been getting a little bit frustrated with certain things that I see and certain people giving their views on the topic. And I think that the mother that gave a statement on behalf of her son recently, as of today, I think she kind of put it in context best when she said that it's trying to explain a narcissist's abuse and behavior to somebody who has never experienced a narcissist's abuse or narcissism in general is like trying to explain colors to a blind person. It's kind of difficult to look at people saying things like, but he's such a great person and he's done so much for the community and he's done so much for, other kids. And, I've never seen him be angry and I've never seen him. And I just get frustrated at all of these comments because you don't have to. You don't have to see anybody being abusive. You don't have to see anybody being a generally, bad person or in a bad mood or snap at someone to know that, it's a possibility that they are abusive. I think even media has done a really good job at actually portraying this. It's not just a movie. You can have the most loved and adored person be abusive to the people in their household, and nobody will be the wiser. If they don't want people to know, they will lie. They will say, nothing is happening. Look at, what was that movie with Jennifer Lopez? Enough.
Yeah, that was what it was. Enough is definitely what it was. I was trying to remember myself.
I think that's a really good portrayal because that situation was exactly, what I see with this situation as well. You have somebody who is, well known in the community. You have somebody who people respect in the community, who, people have never heard anything like this. Look at how long J-Lo went in that movie being abused without saying a thing to anybody about it, right?
Well, not to cut you, but even to talk about it when she did try to reach out, and I would say to I think it was his sister, his mom, because I don't remember the movie word for it. It's been a couple of years since I've seen it. It was more like that's not that person. Like, he will never do that. And then when you start seeing, the issue is when you use the one talking about being somebody who's part of the public, because the conversation is that, the individual helps out in their community, and it's crazy to say you see this a lot sometimes, especially with people who have power, right? I mean, with a lot of power comes great responsibility, and I would say this just because I've done sports in Jamaica. I've done track and field for a couple of years. I played football for a couple of years. I did basketball for 1 year. But if there's one thing I can tell you that all my coaches were all have in common, they all were mentally abusive. And right, you would totally have the one star who gets the favoritism, which is abuse in itself, to watch someone knowing that you're trying just as hard or even harder than an individual, and they get to do things that you're not able to do, but you watch the abuse in different ways. And, being in America, I'm happy, because not saying coaches don't hit people here, but I can speak from firsthand. Almost, I've seen coaches hit athletes, and I'm not talking about no little, oh, I'm just slapping you on your shoulder because you just didn't perform right. Like, yo, kick up, punch up. I mean, I can go into the Jamaican slang with it as much as well. So it's never far fetched to hear it. But when you talk about, um the stab wound that pierced from one entry, that was, I guess, went in and came out the other end, my blood run cold. Not just to take it back, because in the sense of abuse, that's attempted murder, because you could have, in that stabbing process, if you would have cut a vein, and I mean, I'm not as medically inclined as a lot of people are, but from what I've come to understand, if you're trying to kill yourself and you slit your vein, you're basically dying, right? Imagine slitting a vein in that moment during that piercing. There's a lot that goes on. So to even think about mental and physical abuse, that is a lot of trauma to deal with, all in one sense. And it's crazy because when you come to understand, majority of these things stem from mental abuse first. That's always the first interaction. We were having the conversation earlier, Janelle. We were talking about, and not to bring, Larsa Pippen into this, but about her dating her young one. Where we're talking about, it's not really abuse, so it's called grooming. But I would like to say this: a lot of abuse starts with grooming, in a sense that you're pushing these small envelopes to see how far it would go and what you can get away with. For example, I spoke with a young lady, not to say, never to say the least, because guys, I could give names, but not until a lot of these people are willing to share their stories, up and first most, I'm gonna try to be as vague as possible, just to be outside of context. She was with her girlfriend, so as you can tell, these are lesbians, and she was like, at first, when she was with her girlfriend, it started as little arguments. Her girlfriend used to start arguing with her, and she was like, at first, she was like, yo, she's just tripping. So she started arguing back. And then they started arguing. They will always argue. Till one day, her girlfriend became physical. And she was like, after she became physical and they argued, she came back to the sentence after that, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to hit you. Right. But the next time they got into an argument, it was argue hitting, till it got to the point where it was not even, it was like one or two words, and I'm going to try to hit you. So it was a consistently a grooming process. Like, I'm gonna yell at you, right? I'm gonna yell at you to see how much I can yell. Then I'm gonna hit you once. Then when I hit you one time, I'm gonna see, oh, you forgive me. I'm gonna hit you again. Oh, you forgive me again. I'm gonna see how hard I can hit you. Now, where the story turns is the relationship ended when the other individual started retaliating, because she was like, you know what? At first, it was cool because I could take the hit because she was a little bit smaller than me, right? In our body frame wise, in a sense. So she was like, you know what? One day I turned around and I just start beating the life out of her. Like, I start using and I'm gonna say this, guys. Her girlfriend is American and she's Jamaican. So she was like, she just started taking up sticks. she hit her with a stone, and homegirl wasn't ready for that because she didn't know like people fight with stones, so she busted her head. Right? No, you see, that's what I said. We can take it into so many different places. And so she bust her head. At one point, she hit her and broke her arm, and it became so aggressive. And she was like, I ain't gonna lie, because of all the abuse that I was taking initially, with all the yelling and the pre-beating, she was like, whenever she used to start talking to me, she's like, if she started talking to me too aggressive, I just grab something and just start slapping her with it. Right? And that was her reason why for getting out of the relationship, because she was like, look, you started abusing me. Now I'm abusing you. But I'm not gonna lie, I want to move on with somebody else, because at this point, it's like you're both technically detrimental to each other. Her family's looking at her like, yo, I know your girlfriend, look at, she's been beating the life out of you. And technically she was. But in the retrospect, they're both beating the life out of each other. And I'm happy that it came to an end, right? Not because of the relationship not working out, because relationship goes through ups and downs. But when you have an individual, regardless if it's a father figure or a relationship that's abusing you to an extent with no love, that is dangerous.
Yeah.
Because you can't say you love me and try to kill me.
You know, there's so many different dynamics to the concept of abuse, because I saw that as well, like, you know, somebody basically saying that um they hate child abusers because, oh, I mean, I guess technically the story that we're talking about, he's not exactly a child, but he is their child, right? So the person was saying that they hate child abusers because you know, that's the worst thing that you could do, and XYZ. And I kind of, you know, I've seen it from different angles before, where you have somebody who is abusing their child because they're genuinely like sick, right? They really genuinely have issues. Um, but I've also seen it on the other end of the spectrum, where as much as the abuse is, you know, wrong and uncalled for, you can tell that the person actually cared for their child. Like, they loved their child and they wanted the best for their child. They just took it too far. Um, because, you know, especially in the Caribbean, you have people who will discipline with any method, you know, they can find. And I think, like, once it starts getting to a level where you take it too far, I don't think that the parents can tell that they're taking it too far, especially when they grew up doing stuff like that, or having stuff done like that to them. It's kind of like, well, I didn't do anything that like my parents did to me, you know. I didn't, it wasn't that bad, or it wasn't as you know, it wasn't worse than what my parents did to me. And so they really genuinely, like, they have love, they care about the child, but they just don't understand or don't comprehend that, like, even though it's not, you know, the worst thing that you could do, like stab your child, there's still levels to abuse. So
Mm-hmm.
you might not think that you know, a beating was abuse because to you it's discipline, when like it's actually abuse. You get what I'm saying? Like, it depends on your how you go about doing it.
Well, and Janelle, I want to say this because I agree and disagree in the same time, because I feel like in the Caribbean household, especially, I can only speak from my Jamaican household growing up in, is that the word passion in those disciplinary action is because I am passionate for you. I have so much love for you that you're not doing what I want you to do, and the only way for me to get through to you is by slapping you.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I would say this. I am. It's a tough conversation. It's a wonderful one to look at the abuse in that sense, because then again, I have to look at it as a parent, and that's something that I can say I go through with my own self, in the sense that I want to discipline my kids. I believe in discipline, in corporal disciplinary, right? You know, spank them on their butt, why not? But in the sense that I'm looking at my 12-year-old, you know, which is Chloe at this moment, and I'm telling her, I'm like, look, you're at the age where I'm not supposed to be spanking you.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I don't want to spank you. I don't need you to spank you. And the conversation I have with her, because You know what I mean? Where she's transitioned into this 13-year-old, which, when the word teen hits these, it's not 12, it's not enough, it's not 11th, what I mean? It's a teen, so she's becoming into this woman phase, and I'm explaining to her like, yo, I don't want you, I'm not gonna hit you, you're not gonna get beaten, right? Because I don't want you to feel like this is okay, you know what I mean? Because there's no man is gonna hit you, because I'm gonna sound crazy and take me out of context, like, yo, I'll murder somebody for touching my daughter. So it's the same reason why I know I don't hit my wife. You know what I mean? Because I would never want someone to hit me or hit my siblings outside of that case. And to sit here and think about how I was growing up, because I'm not gonna lie, if my mom had the opportunity, she would beat me till I'm like 50, right? Because a lot of Caribbean household, even when you're in your 20s, they feel like, yo, my word is final.
Mm.
And it's like, they have got to get to a point, and I'm thinking this is food for my soul, so I can help me guide my path away from this when my kids get to that age where I want to be able to give constructive criticism without dictating somebody's life.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, I you there's I if any individual can see to think that there's multiple levels of abuse between mental and physical, but if for us to get to a part or a department where we can divert from that, from getting to the same goal. For example, spoke to a friend and going through some relationship issues, and it makes me identify something whenever I do with my wife. Like, if I'm going to make her upset, like, baby, I ain't gonna lie, I'm gonna say something to you that's gonna upset you, right? Um, is just to give her pre-warn. So I know you're gonna get upset. Let me just put you in a state. I'm gonna upset you. Okay, what am I gonna get upset about? Just so I don't blindside you. Then probably if I put you in that state and I say what I'm about to say, you can decide if you're gonna go to level 10 or not, or get back to zero. But at least I'm putting you into a state of action where you may want to respond a certain way. So if you're doing something that I don't want you to do, like, I'm gonna say this, Janelle, and I'm just using this as an example, guys. Like, Janelle, right now I'm about to upset you. I think you suck at being a lawyer, right? But at least I started. I'm about to upset you. I'm kind of putting to the mind frame, like, what are you going to say to me that's going to upset me right now? Now
Mm.
you laugh because you don't suck at being a lawyer. So it's like, okay, so you just tell me foolishness on my head right now, right? But it's for people to start getting into a process of how to evaluate before we get to these abuse. And we've watched it severely over the last couple. I can say years, because I know a lot of women, a lot, people who are personal to me, who's been physically abused, mentally abused,
Same.
in the sense of abuse to the point where I will not lie. The reason why I don't cheat on my wife or hit my wife is not saying I don't love because I don't love my wife. I do. I love her dearly. But I was able to witness abuse on a level that I wouldn't wish for nobody. And that is the reason why I try not to be abusive. But not everybody who had my experience make the same decisions, because in that household during that moment, there's a couple of us who were in there who saw the same things and experienced it even in a darker level, and still end up being abusers as well.
And so that okay, so that goes to a bigger statement that a lot of people will use, is that hurt people, right? Sometimes you will go through the abuse and come out and say, okay, I don't ever want to be like that. And people actually end up not being like that, which is admirable. Like, hats off to you, round of applause, okay? Um, but then you also have, you know, others who go through situations like that, and they know technically that they don't want to be like that, but they have went through so much abuse that they almost think that, like, this is the normal way to be. So they come out and they're dealing with or they're grappling with how to live life and be what they want to be, but also live life in the way that they have always known. to be living, right? So it's almost like a what's the word I'm looking for? Like a destruction of the existing schema. You've lived this entire life, and your existing schema is one thing, and then you come out of it and say, okay, I don't want to be like that, but how else is there to be? How do I reconcile the fact that I don't want to be abusive with the fact that these are the only things that I know how to do or how to react to certain situations. Like, I know a lot of abusive people who came out of the situation and now have anger issues. And that is, I feel like it's so normal. Like, you can't be in an abusive situation and not have something wrong with you, whether it's anxiety, whether it's, whatever other disorders that are out there. Your mental space is precious, and when you deal with mental abuse, physical abuse, any kind of abuse, right, you're going to come out with, I don't want to say things wrong with you, but essentially uh things that aren't like technically normal. um I think that it's always good to keep in mind that, even if you think that there is nothing wrong with you when you come out of a situation like that, you have to kind of gut check yourself and say, okay, let me go to therapy. Like, let me have this conversation with a therapist so that we can, come to the realization of, like, is this normal, or is this not normal? And I do that with my therapist at this point. Like, I will have the conversation with him and be like, yeah, but that's how we are. Like, that's how we live. That's how, it always has been. And he'll kind of be like, oh, okay. And I'm just like, it leaves me thinking, like, wait, the way he just sounded, like, okay, wait, is it not normal? Like, do people do it a different way than I do it? Like, it makes you just second guess, and like, and not in a bad way. Second guess in that, like, is this the way that I want to live? Or do I want to be living in a different way? And nothing is, technically normal, right? Like, everyone has their own way of being, but at the end of the day, you get to decide whether you want to be a certain way or not. And when you come out of an abusive situation and you have those abusive tendencies or traits at no fault of your own, it's on you to put a stop to it. And it's on you to figure out, okay, I want to do things differently. How do I do them differently? Mm-hmm. So, something else that kind of really bothered me about this situation is when people started saying, oh, well, we have the child's word that he was stabbed and there's been abuse, since he was young. But then we also have the father's word that he didn't do anything to him, and the child is basically making things up because he's disturbed, right? So that after the father made that statement, and obviously, as I said, he's well known in the community and people like him, people started coming forward and saying, well, we need somebody to corroborate the situation. Like, who do we believe? Who is right? Like, maybe this is a lie.
I mean, all right, hold on. And this is the part that is crazy. Because, I mean, we talk about hurt people, and hurt people do hurt themselves. Because that's where the hurt game starts. You know what I mean? But I've watched people hurt people from movies, because I've only seen this in the movies where, they're like, oh, your significant other is leaving you, and I'm just going to hit myself in the wall and leave these scratch marks and whatnot. So in case I file a case or a claim, like, police can believe you. But if we're talking about a stab mark that is punctured somebody's body and has an exit wound, right? I would say this: any medical personnel will corroborate my statement to say that is ludicrous to even think of.
So here's the thing. There wasn't a medical report done, and I believe the child went to the hospital and got looked at. But when the statement came out from the father did what every great narcissist does. And he essentially, like, how in Enough, every time something happened, it would be like, oh yeah, she's just clumsy, she just, she fell, or she, hit her head on the door, or something along those lines. it's the biggest red flag and the biggest tell to me when things like that happen, and the first thing you can say is, yeah, you know, that's just how they are, they're just a little bit clumsy. So the father actually put the statement out and said that um it wasn't, he didn't have anything to do with it, he did not assault him. What happened was the child fell. And this, okay, first of all, the child is, you know, an athlete, okay? So um this isn't a situation where it's like you can even imagine that the child has such bad hand-eye coordination that he just like happens to fall on, you know, things that go through his arm. Like, that was insane to me. That, like, I didn't even hear the first part. I mean, the second part, I heard the first part and I was like, what are you talking about right now? What? But he fell, and it was a stick that went through his arm. So I think that people who don't want to believe it are going to be looking at that story and saying, well, it could have been a stick. But I mean, if you're objective to the situation and you saw the photos of the stab wound, there's no way that a stick went through and did what like that damage, right? It was a clean cut, first of all. It was cut open almost like, it looked like an you know those like old school envelope openers, letter openers? That's what it looked like. Like the entrance wound looks so, like I said, it's just clean. I don't know where you can find a stick anywhere that is as clean as that to like leave that kind of mark. But you know, I'm not a forensics expert. That's not what I'm doing here. I'm just saying the way that people came at the situation and said, okay, but we need somebody to corroborate. Obviously, this situation is not going away for now. The father has hired a lawyer. So I imagine it's going to go through the courts at this point. I imagine the medical, you know, exam will come out and all of that. Details will be shared later on. But my point really was that when you look at situations like this and your first in, you know, like your first response to something like this is, we need somebody else to corroborate this. um, I feel.
So, Jenna, wait, what is the lawyer for? Is his son suing him?
Honestly, I don't know. There hasn't been, you know, details let out. I don't know if it's that they're trying to press charges. I think the lawyer that he hired is a criminal attorney, so that could be it. But I really don't know, honestly, because I didn't see anything about him getting arrested or anything like that. So I don't know. But I just felt incredibly sad to know that they were actually questioning him to that extent. Like, we need somebody else in the family to corroborate it, and they were looking to his brother to corroborate. And this is actually, like, I saw these comments after the mother had already corroborated the story. The mother had already put out her own statement and basically said, like, you know, I stand by my son. But even if the mother didn't put out a story, my point is that there's a lot of situations that you can objectively look at and say, okay, this is what it is. And I think this was definitely one of those situations. Like, like I said, I kept seeing red flag after red flag. The man really tried to say that it wasn't his fault and he didn't do anything and the child is just disturbed. And when I tell you, this is straight from a playbook of an abuser. The playbook, he pulled for the playbook, is to try and always say that the child is the problem, the child is the one that has the issues, or the other person in general. The person that is being abused is the one that has all the issues. I can't remember what other movie that I'm not remembering it right now, but it was basically the person abusing her was saying that, like, she has like psychological issues and she needed to, like, actually it's not a movie. Okay,
That's so funny, bro.
no, don't judge me. Gossip Girl.
Oh, there you go. There you go.
So so in Gossip Girl, when she married the prince, and then, you know, she realized that the prince was, you know, putting on a show and he didn't really want to be with her, and she tried to run away, and he went to the media and said, you know, she's just been having a lot of psychological issues and we need to get her the help that she needs. When I tell you, like, it's the biggest manipulation whatsoever to try and turn things on the other person and say, oh, they're just crazy. They just have issues. Like, nobody is crazy for no reason. Like, you can't just, I mean, had he had these, you know, I want to say, I mean, he doesn't have psychological issues, but had he had the psychological issues that you are alluding to for his entire life, maybe people would believe you.
Yeah, but that's why I started with, especially in the Jamaican culture, this is something that's very, very common.
Mm-hmm.
Because you're going to talk about the individual. I think you said he's in his 20s, right?
Yeah.
I want to make sure.
Early.
That's a young adult.
Mm-hmm.
But we've consistently seen parents do these things. But what he's looking for, and I'm just going to say based on what I'm listening to, is justification for why he didn't think he did anything. Like, oh, from the fact that you started hearing people from the community coming out saying that he didn't do anything, that this is not normal, because what they're trying to do is get it discredited. But and I do want to stick. How do you discredit a flesh wound? In the sense that, because even if we think a stick just went through your skin, right? For you to take for you to push me down, because normally that's the only way you can tell me, because it's either, and I'm using push me down, because for it's either I would have stabbed you or for you to fall. But for me and you to even get into a tussle for you to fall hard enough, and we're gonna again utilize the fact that the guy's an athlete,
Mm-hmm.
right? Where hand-eye coordination is a must, right? In their endeavor. Um, that is pretty much so. And even so, right? The narcissistic fact of it would have been like, yes, me and him got into an altercation, and then I did push him, and he fell, and he got hurt. For the fact that he's denying it, he's going to deny that I have done nothing to him, right? But then allude to the fact that a stick is what did the damage. So you know what did the damage then. So what you're basically saying, you know what did the damage, but what, right? You, that's the case. And your homie saying over here that you're the one who did you. This is what you did to me now, and the reason why I'm speaking out is because this has been going on for years, and I have to put a stop to it. I
Yeah.
mean, it's a lot. I mean, people do get to breaking points, and I would like to say this. It sounds like there's a lot of images trying to be helped in this matter, because for one, most island people is not going to want to send their child back over there if it's that dangerous in any form of business endeavor that is being done.
But I mean, yes, I agree, and I agree that that entire situation should really be taken from him. Like, you can't be working with kids and you want to beat up your own child.
Yeah.
But I think that the basis of this situation has not been about any other child. It's strictly his own child. I think he has clearly an issue, and they have issues with him wanting to basically be in charge. The mother's statement kind of alluded to the fact that he thinks that he is everyone's master, the father. Um, she flat out was like, slavery's over.
That's what she said.
Yes.
So basically, in this moment, she's getting freedom.
I honestly, I really don't know their situation. I'm not sure if they're still married. I'm not sure if they're separated. But I do know that the child came out and said that the mother has also been experiencing mental and physical abuse at the hands of the father. So I don't know if this is. I'm not. I can't really say. I'm not in their personal family to
Yeah,
say.
but it's not even to say this, Like I would hate to say it, but this story to me is common in
Mm-hmm.
the Caribbean household.
Yeah,
I've seen it
a,
like
a lot.
numerous times.
A lot more common than people actually think, because I think that you see one story here and there, and you see like, oh, okay, this person came out on social media, oh, okay, this person got arrested, and you think that it's like isolated incidents, and
Mhm.
it's not by any means. The like Caribbeans, they it's almost like they keep the ideals that slavery brought to them. um
Mhm.
and so I think that it's more of a mindset than it is about discipline, but they don't really understand that. They don't get that. Because I completely believe with discipline the same way that you believe in it. But
Mhm.
but there's a mindset that comes with discipline that if you don't have it as this is strictly discipline and this is just keeping them on the right path, and instead your mindset is you're going to do everything that I say that you're going to do when I say that
Mhm.
I want you to do it and how I say that I want you to do it, like that is where it becomes a problem, because it becomes a situation where it's about power dynamics. It's about you inflicting your power and authority onto your child versus wanting the best for them and wanting to guide and lead them, in a good way. You understand what I'm saying? So it's like, I think that Caribbean people in general have issues with understanding that there are differences between discipline and abuse.
Mhm. Yeah, I would definitely agree because when I've heard Caribbean people use this saying that I brought you in this world and I'll take you out,
Oh,
and
for
in their mind that's not mental abuse. I'm like, really? If you when you put that whole statement in context, you basically said that because I brought you here, I could kill you.
hmm
That's a threatening statement. But in most Caribbean household, that's not a threatening statement. That's just a figure of speech.
yeah. I mean, I grew up hearing the same thing as well. Um, I mean, I've heard the same thing and worse. Put it that way.
Yeah,
I
I
think
agree.
I think that so many Caribbean children grow up being abused, but it's like I said, there's levels to it. I mean, we're pretty much all in the same boat, but I've never been stabbed. I can tell you that. I have never had a flesh wound like that. I've never been burned by an iron or anything like that. I'm not saying that he was burned by an iron, but I'm saying like,
Mm.
just the like outrageousness of the injuries is kind of like, wow.
Yeah, I mean, I can't even say because I've known people who's been hell underwater, right? Who's been choked, who's who's had their knee up over their neck for them to stop breathing. But like, I want you to feel like, I want you to know what it feels like when you're about to lose your life because I can take this away from you.
Right. And then, again, those people, it's like, how do you not understand that this is no longer about trying to make sure that your child has the best, and it's now about the power dynamics and you asserting your power over somebody. It's almost like, that sociological experiment where they put regular people as prison guards,
Yeah.
and they just start going crazy, like they they just start taking advantage of people, they start like abusing people in the jail. That's essentially what it is. Like, you have to have that understanding that this is not about power, and this is not about asserting dominance and authority over somebody. This is not your slave, this is your child. Like, anything that you do regarding discipline should come from that place of love and not be you, like, trying to convince yourself and convince the child that this is about love. Because that was another thing. You have so many Caribbean parents that will beat their child and say, it's because I love you.
Mm-hmm.
Um, like, this hurts me more than it hurts you. No, no, it doesn't. I promise.
Yeah. I guarantee you, because yeah, the pain that I'm feeling in my body right now, you're not feeling it. You feel me? The only thing you probably got was a workout. This was like your mental visit to the gym. Because right now you need a cup of water, don't you?
But
I
I also
mean,
I also kind of want to address um the area of mental and psychological abuse a little bit more, because I think that a lot of people will see situations happening and they don't really grasp that it's abuse because nobody's being hit or nobody's being injured in the situation. But, like, you have that term, words can't hurt, or
yeah,
words
sticks
can't hurt
sticks
me.
and stones, sticks and stones may break my bones, but words will never hurt me.
Okay. How many times have you ever had words hurt you?
All the time.
Okay. I don't know who came up with that. And honestly, I can definitely say that people that I really don't care about, people out there on the street who have said stuff about me, like, honestly, like, I just have that composition where I don't really care. I know other people who are, a little more sensitive. They're more in tune with their,
Uh-huh.
emotions about how people feel about them. And That's okay too. I'm personally not like that. But what I will say is that words from people who I love, from people who I care about, from people who I respect and respect their opinions and actually take their opinions into account, like those words for sure will hurt. And especially when you're hearing words over and over to the extent of trying to make you feel like you're nothing or that you won't accomplish anything. And it doesn't even have to be something as nasty as you're nothing. It could be something as simple as, for example, my mother has always told me that I can't get along with anyone.
And, I mean, you see, and I had a conversation today with a friend of mine where he's like, he was hurt because he pays all the bills, does all the grocery shopping, does majority of the cooking and the cleaning, and his significant other looks at him and was like, you don't do nothing for me. You don't do nothing in the relationship. So had a conversation. He was like, all right, word. And this is where I'm at. So he stopped doing everything. And now it's like, why is all this going on? And it's like, oh, so you didn't realize I was doing stuff before, right? Now there ain't no groceries being bought. There's nothing being clean. It's like, well, the house is a mess. Yeah, I'm the one who do all that stuff, baby. But you sitting here telling me that I don't contribute anything. Do you pay no bills? No, I pay all the bills. And it's like a factor. Like it's like, man, he was like, yo, as bad as it sounds to you, like if she would have even hit me, it wouldn't even hurt me that bad. But to realize that I've been spending like the last couple of years like doing all this, and you're just gonna look at me and tell me that I don't do anything, it hurt me more than anything else. Like that's the most hurtful thing that I felt that you said to me. And the abuse of it is that was more mentally abusive because for him that was like, I can't believe the audacity. It was more like he just punched me in my ish, and that's the I didn't understand because I understand to the extent of being in a relationship, but I would say this. I guess God has given me the opportunity where my wife has tried to delegate the work. So whatever we do, we try to do it together. So she doesn't try to be doing it all on her own or me doing it all on my own. So to fathom that they're doing all that when I'm like, yo, dog, I'm tired. You feel me? To hear somebody's looking at you like you're not doing anything. It's a very hard one, and you just wouldn't even realize how abusive that was to him. But continue, Janelle.
No, that's exactly what I was going to say. I think that it's such a simple statement that people will look at it and be like, it's not that serious, right? But when it's coming from somebody that you actually love and that you feel like your best for, and this person is essentially telling you that you're useless, right? Because you don't do anything. I can absolutely understand, hearing that, and if you're hearing that over and over again, it's not like it's a one-time situation. You say, okay, you don't do anything, and then like a conversation is had, and then you get past it, and you say, okay, well, this is what I want you to do, and now the situation is fixed because now you're doing things that I can tangibly see, and I personally feel like you're doing stuff and everything is wonderful, right? It's never a situation like that. It doesn't work that way in intimate relationships. And when I say intimate, I don't necessarily mean romantic either. Just who are, very close to you in that way, right? So you're going to have that conversation over and over again. And when you're having that conversation because you guys aren't on the same page and you feel like you're doing a lot and the other person doesn't feel like you're doing a lot, it's the same thing here, hearing it over and over again. You don't do anything. You don't do anything. Again, you're useless. You're useless, right? It's almost like a level of brainwashing or an indoctrination of saying like,
it's a level of brainwashing, Janelle. I think that's what it is.
This is somebody whose opinion you value over the majority of people in your life. So when somebody is telling you something over and over again, you start to believe it about yourself and you start to act in that way. And so something that my therapist was talking to me about again, another the TED talk that I brought up in I don't know if it was the last episode or the one before, about the husband and the wife writing into her. It was really about changing the narrative. So there's a narrative that everyone has about you, in your life, and you kind of take on those narratives on like for yourself, right? But really what you need to be doing is taking on your own story. So, my mom will tell me over and over again, you can't get along with anybody. But um I feel like on some level from I was very young, it was kind of just like, okay, I don't really like get along with people and I don't really like people, right? And it wasn't until I started getting older and making friends for myself and being social and going out and a bunch of people know me and like me and that kind of thing is when I was kind of like, okay, you're not right. Like you're not like accurate with this statement, right? But had I not seen that for myself and had I not been able to like experience that for myself, I probably would have went my entire life thinking like, yeah, my mom said that I don't get along with anybody, so I don't get along with anybody. I get along with a lot of people. um, but I will tell you that I'm sure that she's not saying it maliciously. I'm sure that she's not trying to just hammer it into me that I don't get along with people, but it's also mental abuse in terms of things that you say to people can really affect people and you just don't even know, right? Because I never even told my mom like, this is what you've said to me and this is the what happened because of it, right? um but the fact that she said it to me over and over again, I don't think that it was, like I said, something that she meant to do. It was just things that she would see that would happen. And the reason that she says you don't get along with people is because I have a more of a confrontational personality than other people. I am definitely not the person that is going to be stepped all over and walked all over. I am the person that will tell you about yourself if you do something that I do not appreciate. And of course, people with my type of personality are a little bit, difficult to get along with if you are the person who runs away from accountability. And I've experienced that over and over again because a lot of people don't like accountability. A lot of people don't like being told that they're doing something wrong, right? And not necessarily doing something wrong, but doing something wrong to somebody else. Um, so I understand, why it was said, and I, get that in my older years, like this is the reason for it. I get where she's coming from, but all I'm saying is that, people need to start thinking about what they're saying to the people that they love, and how that is going to affect them mentally, because the simplest things that you say to somebody could be or could become a form of mental abuse.
Yeah, because I mean, I think that's one of the reasons why even in the last episode when we talked about perception, it's very important because that's why when we talk about grooming in the abusive stage, that's what it is. Because what you're doing is messing with somebody's perception. For example, when your mom started identifying the fact that you don't get along with anybody, what it started doing, it started identifying that to you, right? So now you started thinking to yourself, am I not? Right? Is it really so? And it's like, man, if not saying identification is not good, but as I said earlier, there's different ways to identify with things. Is instead of, and I'm going to use the wordplay, instead of saying that you don't get along with people, right? There could have been another approach towards that to help you do with your perception. All right, you know what I mean? Like, and to say the least, because even if I think about a proper way of saying age, you may have to work on your people skills, right? That in a sense is just the same way, but it's to find words to resonate with. And it's different because when somebody, and remember when we're talking about, depends on who says these things to you,
Mm-hmm.
right? You would hope that the person who knows you best, to understand your personality, to know that if I say this towards you this way, this is the effect that it has. And in the one of the issues that I feel like abusers has is that they don't ever take the time to understand somebody else's perception.
Mm-hmm.
The only reality that they're consistently living is theirs. Because when we talk about the Jennifer Lopez thing, when the reality of like, oh, you're always falling down, or you know what I mean, she tripped and bumped her head, because in your reality that would be the only thing that can justify that bruise or that person getting that hurt. Because on the technical side, a lot of bruises don't have to come from falling down.
Mm-hmm.
You could be walking past a counter and go, ouch, and bump your side. Or you could be taking some salt down or something out of your cabinet and it goes pop and hits you in the head by mistake, right? But when you start identifying with some of the main similarities, like you're always falling down, it's showing it. It's the sense that you're falling down a lot is somebody who's clumsy,
Mm-hmm.
which is a whole nother form of abuse. Because all what you telling a person is like, yo, you can never get it together.
Yep, that too. Yeah, you can't do anything right.
You can't do anything right. And the overall process of this abuse, I'm telling you from what I'm getting, from what I've gained in my sense, is I think if somebody will stop and think about what they're doing and how it affects the other individual,
Mm-hmm.
they will start to understand what is going on. And I'm not to get political. I feel like that's what's missing in a lot of these political endeavors, right? Because I've known people who's against immigration, and I'm like, have you ever left the country? No, never left the country before. So you don't have no perspective of what goes on in another part of in another country, another part of the world, and to realize that you may be one of the individuals who help them. Not because you don't believe in immigration, but if you open up your mind and your heart towards something else, you will have an idea. So what you're doing, you're abusing the fact that somebody is trying to gain an opportunity and you're sitting here trying to stop it. If sometimes you can understand, and not to say the least, because I'm not trying to tell people like abusers need to get beat, because that's just my personal opinion. But in the sense that if you're being abused, and I'm using the girl from the lesbian relationship, it's not until she started beating the life out of her significant other is when the perception was like, yo, like this is war, right? Like I'm gonna start beating you back down before you understand it. And then what cycle do you create in that moment? Hurt people. Now the cycle of abuse is not continuously. Now whoever is around you, you're teaching them abuse, because how what are they now being used to is the form of abuse that you guys are putting on in each other. Like I want a lot of people don't seem to understand that there's always a bigger picture in this. They're always sitting and they're looking at the small piece of the puzzle that they're trying to put in, like, oh, it doesn't fit here, but there's the big picture, right? And please remember, everything from beyond is seeing the big picture. It's only you with the small pieces is only caring about what the puzzle looks like. Everybody's just sitting there looking back, like, oh, and you want to hear a crazy thing? Half the time, people don't even know what piece is missing. It's not until you start exuberating some sort of quality, like stabbing your individual son through their arm, is going to make somebody start questioning what type of mindset you have. It is.
So you actually touched on something earlier that I kind of want to put context to. So when you said people need to start thinking about how their actions make others feel, or other people's feelings, right? This is the thin line between somebody who is a narcissist and somebody who isn't, because narcissists don't have the capacity to think about other people's emotions and how they feel, because they're only thinking of themselves. They're
Mm,
only thinking from their perspective and from what they want. It's not about anyone else. There's not even an ounce of guilt when situations like this come up, because it's not about you, it's about them.
yeah, I agree. I've seen that a lot. I've seen that a lot. I mean, I don't want to call out anybody else in that, but you've seen that narcissist a lot. Some people have very huge government titles that have that behavior. Never to say the least. Because I would say this, I wouldn't call it abuse. A lot of people, I think the new word for abuse is bullying,
Mm.
because I feel like that's the new name for abuse. When somebody doesn't want to use abuse, they go, "Oh, you're bullying that person." No, you're abusing that person, bro. Fix that.
Well, I mean, to be fair, and maybe it's just, me having tough skin or just looking at things differently, but there are things that I believe should be considered abuse versus bullying, but I feel like a lot of people just want to kind of lump everything into abuse.
Mm-hmm.
I do think that there should be a line um, where, like, bullying is on one side and abuse is on the other. I don't think that it should all be one thing. For example, I had a former boss who used to bully the crap out of, or try, I should say, try to bully the crap out of me.
Mm-hmm.
And every time it would happen, we'd end up going like head to head. Um, I think that any other person in that situation who is not like me and who would not, be comfortable standing up to their boss or be comfortable in a confrontational situation would end up finding themselves in an abusive situation.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Especially with your boss, because you start thinking about the use of power in that moment.
right. Um, so I mean, all of it comes down to, I guess, psychological state, where you're at. Because I mean, I have friends that I know damn well that if they were in that situation, they wouldn't have said anything. They would have, went home and cried every day. um,
Mm-hmm.
but they wouldn't have said anything to their boss. So I just think that there, like I said, there is a line. You can't just lump everything into abuse. But that line, I think, depends on the psychological state of the victim, whether it's bullying or whether it's abuse. Because you can bully somebody, but like, it doesn't necessarily mean that that person is not going to strike back at some point and stand up for themselves and be the strong person in the situation and say, yeah, no, screw you. um and then it could also, like I said, just become something deeper and darker if the person is not in the psychological state to do something like that, or to just ignore and just say, okay, I don't really care what you think, or I don't really care what you say. Because then there are people who have those kinds of personalities. I worked with somebody like that as well, a former coworker. He just did not give a damn. Like, our boss could try to bully him and he would make a joke out of everything.
You like, real? That's what you're doing today? Okay. I
Like, all
see
right.
somebody didn't get their meds, but all right. Let's see how this goes.
So so I definitely think that there has to be a distinction. There has to be a distinction between abuse and other things, because it's just like, the problem that we have right now with racism. I mean, everything is racism. Everything. Like, so how can you differentiate, and how can one like tell if they're being racist or not being racist? And then sometimes you hear certain things that, like, oh well, you chose somebody else in the class to read the passage of the book, and you didn't choose me, and I'm the only black person in the class, so that's racist. Like, was it though?
Yeah.
Was it?
Because
uh
I mean, Joe, I'm not gonna lie. When I first got here and I was in English class, my English teacher used to make me get up and read all the time, and I used to be like, "Yo, he don't like me. He's racist." But at the end of the day, what it really did is teach me how to read American English properly.
yeah, because you had a heavy accent.
And I hated that. I hated it. But after going back around my Jamaican peers, and they're like, "Yo, you're trying to act like you're speaking like a foreigner. You're talking better than me." And I'm like, "No, I mean I'm in English class, and I have to read and talk like this, bro.
Hmm.
Like I'm not sure. I know that in our culture we're slanged up, but this is where my challenge is. And to meet Mr. Kendall years later, and then for him to still remember me, was just to show you that not sometimes because you think that somebody is out to get you that they are. You
Hmm.
know what I mean? I just wish he would have told me that back then. He was like, "No, I'm just gonna have you get this reading on," and it was daily, bro, every morning in English. But yeah, shout out to Mr. Kendall. But never to say the least, But I ain't gonna lie. We touch on a lot of different segments of abuse, and I do not want to forget about what happened this weekend. I know this is completely away from what we've been talking about in other contexts, but after watching the abuse that Nate Robinson take from Jake Paul, I have to say, in the sense that it was abuse. I don't care, guys. The memes are funny. Um, I do want to say this, and I want to take take this on the topic of abuse, and I do want to use this to address, I would say, African Americans and us as Black people in general, right? Just so we're back in context, we abuse each other more than everybody else. In the sense that whenever somebody of another race falls, you really don't see that their peers is mocking them and tearing them down during their hurt. If somebody is hurt, right, and you're making fun of their hurt, I do want to say, and I'm Janelle, you can put me back in context if I need to be. That to me is abuse. That is heavy abuse. Yes, it was funny to see the fight. Nate Robinson did get knocked out, right? That's part of the fight game. The fight game is a hurt game. There's no way around it. If you're not prepared, you're going to get hurt. But for me to technically sit and watch more black people clowning Nate Robinson than more helping him than anything else. And one of the memes put that in perspective to me of why and how important the talk of abuse is. Um, an imagery showed Mike Tyson and Roy Jones Jr. fighting, and I'm not sure if the meme was correct or not, but they're making fun of that Nate Robinson was still laying on the mat in the background, that he just hasn't woken up yet. He's been still knocked out over there and unconscious. And the internet world on Twitter went crazy for it, right? Like, oh man, Nate's been knocked out for a while. He's been night. He's been sleeping. But I'm like, guys, if someone knock you out and you're out for more than 10, 15 minutes sleeping over there, I think we need to start worrying. Like, let's get out of abuse mode. You got knocked out. Snoop Dogg was funny as the commentator. Shout out to my boy Snoop, right? But at the end of the day, we have to check our own mental ability and check on each other. Because one of the reasons why, as a people, that we're not standing together is because we're so busy abusing each other. I mean, we can go with the abuse of black on black crime because black people killing each other every day. That's abuse in its whole. That's one of the reasons why we can say we can go so many angles with abuse. But just so we can understand in our own main context is that, guys, one of the reasons why abuse is so important is because it's one of the strongest things that's deteriorating the black culture on a whole to this day. And until we stop abusing each other in our own mental space, and give me a second, Jenna, because I know you're going to fix me in a moment. Until we stop abusing each other in our own mental space and the fact that we're not supporting each other. Someone said something to me, it's going to be a little bit graphic. It's like watching Pornhub, right, and not supporting OnlyFans is like hurting small businesses, right? In the sense that you can watch all the girls and take off their clothes for free in the hub, right? But you wouldn't pay for somebody who's trying to start their own endeavor and supporting their small businesses. Is one of the main reasons why we as a culture abuse each other. In itself, that we got to learn to start supporting each other and stop hating on each other, because all the other people who's showing it for free are getting paid over there already. Well, some of them I can't tell because I'm not in that business. But in the still, we gotta learn as a community to start helping each other and start deteriorating each other. Go ahead, Janelle.
Well, so I mean, I definitely agree with the overall concept of, just lifting each other up. I don't like the term black on black crime. I don't like that usage because I feel like it is meant strictly to invalidate Black Lives Matter and the abuse that we go through at the hands of police.
Mm-hmm.
Because of the fact that here's the thinking behind it. Black on black crime doesn't exist. The same way that white on white crime doesn't exist. If you want to look at the colors of the people who are being, victimized, sure, you can say it's a black person and another black person, or a white person and another white person. But generally speaking, the people who are closest to you and the people in your area, the people in your geographic location, the people in your community, those are the people who are going to perpetrate crime against you.
Mm-hmm.
Majority of people that will perpetrate crime against you are your people. So the same way with white people, if you live in a white neighborhood, in a white community, the people who are going to be perpetrating crime against you, they're going to be white. It's not a matter of black on black crime. It's a matter of, this is where we live. This is the community. This is the neighborhood that we're in. These are the people that we're surrounded by. So that's how it happens. The same way that you see statistics on domestic abuse and people who are killed by their partners. It's because these are the people you're with. These are the people who are around you. You know, the statistics say something along the lines of like you're more likely to be killed by somebody you know.
Mm-hmm. That's correct.
So
That is correct.
it therefore extends to other areas of crime. You can't call it black on black crime. It's just a matter of where you're located. Because I mean, I'm located in one area. I'm not gonna go find myself, 4 hours away to just randomly kill somebody. But I will tell you, obviously, things like that do happen by accident, maybe, or
Mm.
maybe on a road trip and just. I mean, I've seen like enough episodes of like cops, not cops. Not like cop shows where
Yeah.
they, this random couple just went on a drug spree and took a road trip and decided like, hey, this looks like an empty house, let's go there, and they end up with a crime spree behind them, right? But things like that, like, though, that's not the majority. And so what I'm saying is the majority that you're counting as black on black crime or quote unquote white on white crime, it's just a matter of geographic location.
Mm-hmm.
So
I
I'm
agree.
of that. So I had to like put that in context right there. I don't adhere to this whole black on black crime crap.
I agree. I agree. I mean, and that's one of the things that we said we talk about wording, because now we're labeling it. Now we're giving this, putting something back to where it's not supposed to be. Where, as you said, because you're right. Because if you live into a diverse neighborhood, you will have a diverse crime.
Mm-hmm.
That's never to say the least. But Jet, before we go ahead and wrap it up, is there anything else you would like to put out there?
Not that I can think of.
Guys, if you guys didn't watch or listen to our last episode, please go ahead and do. Especially talking about abuse, it made me reevaluate a lot with perception, because it's not say you can tie them with each other, but you can put them both in the same context. But that's it again, guys, for our episode. Thank you again. Peace.